I remember the darkness. Not the darkness of sleep. That mercy was stolen from me 10,000 years ago when the gene seed took root in my chest. No, this was different. Deeper. A blackness that pressed against my mind like the void between stars. Cold and absolute. Patient as entropy itself. My name is Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels, 4th Company, 7th Tactical Squad. I have served the Emperor for 237 years. I have purged Xeno's filth from 17 worlds. I have stood upon the ramparts of faith when heretics sought to tear them down. I have been loyal. I have been dutiful. And now I am cursed. The space hulk maw of perdition drifted through the ghoul stars like a corpse through a cemetery ocean. Bloated, rotting, magnificent in its decay. 17 vessels fused by warp travel and time, their hulls welded by forces no mortal science could explain. Cruisers and frigates, merchant haulers and pilgrim barks, all compressed into a single mass of tortured metal and screaming geometry. Somewhere within its labyrinthine guts, Archaeotech waited. Somewhere deeper still, Genestealer's bred. We came to cleanse it. I stood in the deployment bay of the strike cruiser Sanguine Resolve, maglocked to the deck, watching the hulk grow larger in the viewport. Brother Sergeant Dante, no relation to our chapter master, though he bore the name with quiet pride, stood beside me, his helmet already sealed, his bolt pistol drawn and blessed. Around us, 23 battle brothers of the Blood Angels prepared for insertion. Flammers, meltaguns, thunder hammers blessed by Chaplain Valen himself. Target site Omega-7. Dante's voice crackled through the vox. Infestation density. Extreme. Expected resistance. Overwhelming. Survival probability. Acceptable. Acceptable. That was the word we used when we meant unlikely. I checked my bolter, Fury's Kiss, I called it, though I had never spoken the name aloud, and verified the magazine. 20 rounds of blessed vengeance, each bolt inscribed with microprayers by the chapter's sanguinary priests. My chain's word hung at my hip, the teeth sharp enough to split ceramite, the motor recently consecrated. I wore my death around me like a second skin. Crimson armor, golden trim, the blood drop of Sanguinius emblazoned across my chest. We were angels once. Now we are merely warriors who remember what angels were. The boarding pod shuddered as it disengaged from the cruiser, thrusters firing in controlled bursts, guiding us toward the hulk's twisted surface. I felt the familiar pressure of acceleration, the slight nausea that even Astartes' conditioning could not entirely suppress. Through the pod's armored shell, I heard the groaning of the hulk itself, metal stress and gravitational shear, the sound of a structure never meant to exist, held together by forces that defied reason. We hit the hull with a sound like a cathedral bell struck by a falling star. Breach charges detonated. Superheated plasma carved through layers of corroded adamantium and ancient steel. The pod's assault ramp slammed down, and Brother Sergeant Dante was first through the gap, bolt pistol barking, each shot a hymn of destruction. I followed 3 steps behind, Fury's Kiss raised, eyes scanning the darkness beyond. The corridor was a nightmare rendered in rust and shadow. Walls curved at angles that hurt to perceive, covered in layers of fungal growth and unidentifiable biological matter. The air, thinner than it should be, tainted with decay and something else, something chemical and sweet, hissed through my rebreather. Emergency lighting flickered somewhere distant, casting erratic shadows that moved like living things. The floor was slick with condensation and older fluids I chose not to identify. And the silence. Emperor preserve me, the silence was worse than any scream. We advanced in formation, bolt discipline maintained, each step calculated. Brother Varos took point with his flamer, the pilot light casting dancing orange light across the walls. Brother Kale and Brother Matthias covered the flanks, their bolters tracking every shadow. I stayed central, eyes forward, breathing controlled, heart rate steady at 48 beats per minute. The first Genestealer came from above. It dropped from a ceiling vent we hadn't seen, claws extended, jaw distended, moving with the terrible speed of a creature designed by evolution's cruelest algorithms. Brother Varos turned, flamer rising, but the Xenos was faster. Its claws raked across his helmet, ceramite shrieking, scoring deep gouges. He staggered. I fired. 3 rounds, center mass, explosive decompression. The creature's torso vaporized in a spray of purple ichor and fragmented chitin. It hit the floor in 2 pieces, still twitching, its nervous system too primitive to understand it was dead. Contact. Dante's voice was calm, professional. Expect multiple tangos. Maintain formation. Advance. We moved deeper into the Hulk's intestinal corridors, and the Genestealers came in waves. 1s, 2s, then 5s, then dozens. They dropped from ceiling ducts and crawled from wall vents and emerged from floor gratings like demons summoned by some dark liturgy. We killed them systematically, efficiently, without mercy or hesitation. Bolter fire echoed through the corridors like thunder trapped in a bottle. Flames washed across walls, incinerating clusters of Xenos before they could close distance. Chainswords screamed their metal songs, chewing through alien flesh. I lost count after 50 kills. Somewhere around the 83rd Genestealer, a massive broodlord that took 4 croc grenades and 17 bolt rounds to finally drop. I felt the first tremor in my mind. It was subtle, a flicker at the edge of perception, like a shadow moving in peripheral vision. A whisper in a language I didn't recognize but somehow understood. I paused mid-reload, my hands suddenly clumsy, the magazine slipping before I caught it. Brother Cassiel? Dante's voice on the Vox. Status. Operational, I replied, forcing steadiness into my tone. Ammunition expenditure 60%. No damage. But that was a lie. Something was wrong. Deep in the corridors of my mind, in the gene-forged architecture of my enhanced brain, something stirred. Old memory, ancient pain, a genetic echo 10 millennia old, passed down through blood and biology from our Primarch. Sanguinius, the angel, the martyr, the doomed. I pushed forward, following Dante through corridor after corridor, chamber after chamber, each space more twisted than the last. We found the Archaeotech cache in sublevel 17-3 stasis-locked cogitator banks, pre-heresy manufacture, invaluable to the Mechanicus. We secured them with melta charges, prepared for extraction. That's when the Broodlord's reinforcements arrived. They came from 3 directions simultaneously, a coordinated assault that spoke of hive mind intelligence and tactical adaptation. 30 Genestealers moving with choreographed precision, cutting off our retreat, forcing us into a kill box. Brother Varos went down first, his armor breached at the neck seal, claws punching through to soft tissue. Brother Kale followed seconds later, dragged into a side passage, his screams cutting off with terrible finality. We formed a firing line, backs to the Archaeotech, and prepared to sell our lives. The Genestealers came like a living tide. I fired until Fury's kiss ran dry, each bolt round finding purchase in alien flesh, detonating inside torsos and skulls, painting the corridor in shades of purple and black. My chainsword found my hand without conscious thought, the motor roaring to life, teeth blurring into a circular saw of consecrated steel. I stepped forward into the mass, cutting, carving, drowning in violence. A Genestealer lunged. I sidestepped, brought the chainsword down through its shoulder, felt the weapon bite deep, severing limb from body. Another came from my left. I pivoted, smashed my elbow into its face, felt chitin crack, followed with a horizontal slash that opened it from hip to opposite shoulder. Blood sprayed. Ichor coated my armor. The rebreather struggled to filter the chemical stench. Time compressed. Each second stretched into hours. Each heartbeat thundered like artillery. I was dimly aware of my brothers fighting beside me. Dante's bolt pistol barking its one-note song, Brother Matthias roaring prayers to the Emperor, Brother Severus swinging his thunder hammer in great devastating arcs that pulverized everything they touched. We were a machine of destruction, perfectly calibrated, efficiently brutal. But efficiency was not enough against sheer numbers. They kept coming. For every Genestealer we killed, 2 more emerged from the darkness. They climbed over the corpses of their kin without hesitation, driven by instinct and hive imperative. My armor registered 17 impacts, claws that hadn't penetrated but had scored the ceramite, weakening the integrity. My left pauldron was cracked. My right vambrace had lost its Aquila emblem. I was bleeding from a dozen minor wounds, transhuman physiology already clotting, already healing, but the damage accumulating faster than repair. And in my mind, the whisper grew louder. It was not words, exactly. More like memory sensation. The feeling of wings I had never possessed. The phantom pain of wounds I had never received. A vision, fragmented, unclear, of golden walls and a black blade and a betrayer's smile. I stumbled, just for a moment, just long enough for a genestealer to get inside my guard, its claws raking across my chest plate, finding the join between armor sections, penetrating 3 millimeters into the muscle beneath. Pain flared, bright, hot, clarifying. I killed it with an upward thrust, the chain's word entering under its jaw and exiting through the top of its skull. It went limp. I threw the corpse aside and kept fighting. But the whisper wouldn't stop. You died, it said in a voice that was not a voice. You died and we could not save you. You died and we were not enough. You died, you died, you died, you. Cassiel. Dante's voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. Fall back to secondary position. Now. I obeyed. Training overrode confusion. I retreated 5 steps, positioning myself beside Brother Matthias, re-establishing the firing line. Dante threw a frag grenade into the genestealer mass. It detonated with a wet crunch, shrapnel ripping through alien flesh, creating a momentary gap in their advance. Extraction Protocol Omega, Dante ordered. Fighting retreat. Alternating cover fire. Move. We moved. Backwards. Step by careful step. Dante and Matthias firing while Severus and I reloaded. Then reversing, Severus and I laying down suppressing fire while Dante and Matthias fell back. A dance we had practiced 10,000 times, muscle memory and doctrine, the choreography of survival. The genestealers pursued but could not break our discipline. We reached the extraction point, a wider chamber where the space hulk's geometry had created a natural choke point, defensible with clear sightlines. Brother Velos was there, guarding the exfiltration route, his heavy bolter already spitting fire into the advancing Xenos. We took position behind improvised barricades, fallen support beams and collapsed bulkheads, and prepared for the final stand. The Vox crackled. Sanguine resolved to ground team. Extraction craft inbound. ETA 4 minutes. Mark your position with beacon. Dante activated the homing beacon, a small device that broadcast our coordinates through the Hulk's interference, guiding the Thunderhawk to our location. Acknowledged. Holding position. Enemy pressure extreme. Requesting fire support. Negative, Brother Sergeant. Hulk mass prevents orbital strike. You are weapons-free for local munitions only. Of course, we were alone. The genestealers massed in the corridor beyond, their numbers seeming endless, their hive mind calculating, probing for weakness. They had learned. They no longer charged blindly. They waited, watched, prepared. And in that waiting, the whisper in my mind became a scream. I saw it suddenly vivid and undeniable, a vision superimposed over reality. I was no longer in the space hulk. I was standing on golden battlements under a red sky. Before me loomed a traitor in Baroque armor, his face twisted with hate and sorrow, his black blade rising. I tried to move, tried to dodge, but my wings were broken, my body already pierced by a dozen wounds. The blade fell, and I died. I died defending the walls. I died protecting my father. I died knowing I had failed, knowing the Imperium would fall, knowing that everything I had fought for would turn to ash and ruin and... Brother Cassiel? Dante's voice. Close. Concerned. I blinked. The vision faded. I was back in the space hulk, my hands gripping Fury's kiss so tightly the metal groaned. My breathing was ragged, my heart's pounding at 80 beats per minute, dangerously elevated for an Astartes in standby mode. I am operational, I said, but my voice sounded wrong even to my own ears, strained, distant. Dante studied me through his helmet lenses. Your vitals are spiking. Adrenaline, cortisol, neural activity. all elevated beyond combat norms. I am operational, I repeated, more firmly this time. He held my gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded. Stay sharp, brother. 2 minutes to extraction. But I could feel it now, undeniable and terrible, the flaw, the curse written into every blood angel's genetics, coded into our very existence by the trauma of our Primarch's death. The red thirst I had resisted for 2 centuries. The black rage that stalked every son of Sanguinius like a hungry shadow. It was waking up. I had heard the stories, of course. Every blood angel knew the signs, the visions, the confusion of identity, the slow dissolution of self as you became someone else, somewhere else, someone else. You stopped being Brother Cassiel and started being Sanguinius 10,000 years ago, dying on the vengeful spirit, killed by the arch-traitor Horus. The oldest curse, the deepest wound. Most brothers who fell to the black rage were inducted into the death company, repainted their armor black, given the best weapons the chapter possessed, and hurled at the enemy in one final, glorious charge. They died as warriors, their service honored, their sacrifice remembered. But we were in the middle of a space hulk, surrounded by Xenos minutes from extraction. There was no time for ceremony, no time for honor. I had to hold on, just a little longer. The Genestealers attacked. They came all at once, abandoning caution, throwing themselves at our position with suicidal fury. Perhaps their hive mind sensed our imminent escape. Perhaps they simply reached critical mass and could no longer restrain their instinct to kill. Whatever the reason, they surged forward in a living wave. We met them with fire and faith. Heavy bolter rounds tore through the front ranks. Frag grenades created kill zones. Flammers washed across their advance, incinerating clusters. My bolter, reloaded, blessed, sang its song of death. Aimed, fired, aimed, fired. Each shot a prayer, each kill a benediction. But the vision kept intruding. I would see a Genestealer charging toward me, and then suddenly it wasn't a Genestealer. It was a Chaos Space Marine in the colors of the Sons of Horus. I would be pulling the trigger in the Space Hulk's corridor, and simultaneously swinging a blade on the Vengeful Spirit's deck. I was Cassiel. I was Sanguinius. I was both. I was neither. Time fractured. Identity dissolved. Extraction craft inbound. Dante's voice. 30 seconds. Prepare to. Something hit me from the side. A Genestealer, larger than the others, its carapace thicker, its claws longer, had flanked our position, emerging from a vent we hadn't secured. It slammed into me with the force of a runaway servitor, 300 kilograms of muscle and chitin and murderous intent. We went down together, rolling, claws scrabbling against my armor, finding gaps, exploiting weaknesses. I lost my grip on Fury's kiss. The bolter clattered away across the deck. The Genestealer lunged for my throat. I caught its wrists, holding those terrible claws centimeters from my neck seal, my enhanced strength barely matching its feral power. Its jaw distended, revealing rows of teeth designed to tear through ceramite and flesh alike. Acid drool dripped onto my helmet, sizzling. And in that moment, staring into the alien face, fighting for my life, the vision consumed me completely. I wasn't looking at a Genestealer anymore. I was looking at Horus. The face above me twisted, shifting, becoming something else entirely. Gone was the Genestealer's eyeless visage, its predatory alien features. In its place loomed the countenance of the arch-traitor himself, Horus Lupercal, War Master of Chaos, the favored son who became the greatest betrayer. His face was noble and ruined simultaneously, beautiful and monstrous, the face of an angel who had chosen damnation. His eyes burned with warp fire. His smile was full of sorrow and hate. "Brother," he said, and his voice was a knife in my soul. "Why do you resist? Why do you cling to a corpse god who offers nothing but suffering?" I tried to speak, tried to tell him I was not Sanguinius. I was Cassiel. I was a blood angel 200 years removed from the heresy. But the words wouldn't come. My mouth was full of blood. My blood. The Primarch's blood. Blood that tasted of betrayal and loss and inevitable doom. "I am loyal," I whispered, And I didn't know if the words were mine or his. Horus, or the thing wearing Horus's face, laughed. Loyal to what? To an empire built on lies? To a future that died the moment I struck you down? You know the truth, brother. You've always known. The Imperium is rotting from within. Humanity is doomed. Your father's dream ended 10,000 years ago. The claws pressed closer to my throat. I could feel them now. Not genestealer talons, but the talon of Horus itself. Those terrible lightning claws that had ended a Primarch's life. They were cold. They were inevitable. Let go, Horus whispered. Let go of duty. Let go of pain. Let go of. Bolter fire erupted. 3 rounds stitched across the genestealer's back, punching through its carapace, detonating inside its torso. The creature convulsed, its grip loosening. I threw it off with a roar that was half rage, half anguish, rolling to my feet, reaching for my chainsword. Brother Sergeant Dante stood 3 meters away, bolt pistol smoking, his voice cutting through the vox with command authority. Cassiel, status report. I stared at him. For a heartbeat, he wasn't Dante. He was a sanguinary guard in golden armor, standing on the walls of the Imperial Palace, shouting orders while the sky burned. Then reality reasserted itself. The vision fractured. I was in the space Hulk again, surrounded by Xenos corpses and the smell of promethium. Operational, I gasped. But we both knew it was a lie. The Thunderhawk's roar filled the chamber as it descended through the breach point above us, its assault ramps already lowering, its door gunners laying down suppressing fire. The remaining genestealers scattered under the barrage, seeking cover, their hive mind recognizing superior firepower. Go! 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 Dante was already moving, grabbing the Archaeotech crate, hauling it toward the extraction craft. Brother Matthias and Brother Severus provided covering fire, their weapons tracking targets with mechanical precision. Brother Velos collapsed his heavy bolter, mag-locked it to his back, and sprinted for the ramp. I should have followed. Training demanded it. Doctrine required it. But my body wouldn't obey. I stood in the center of the chamber, chainsword in hand, staring at the shadows where the genestealers lurked. And in those shadows, I saw other things. I saw Chaos Marines in the colors of a dozen traitor legions. I saw demons with wings of brass and bronze. I saw the past bleeding through the present, 10,000 years collapsing into a single eternal moment of betrayal and death. Brother Cassiel, Dante's voice, sharp with urgency. Move. Now. I tried. Emperor knows I tried. I took 1 step toward the Thunderhawk. Then another. Each movement felt like walking through quickcrete, my limbs heavy, my mind fragmenting further with every heartbeat. A genestealer emerged from cover, charging toward the extraction craft, toward my brothers. Without conscious thought, I intercepted it, closing the distance in 3 augmented strides, bringing my chainsword down in a vertical slash that split it from crown to groin. The corpse fell in 2 pieces. I stepped over it, searching for the next threat. Another genestealer. I killed it. Another. I killed that one too. I was protecting them. Protecting my brothers. Protecting the sanguinary guard. Protecting. No. Wait. These weren't sanguinary guard. These were genestealers. This wasn't the Siege of Terra. This was a space Hulk in the Ghoul Stars. The confusion was getting worse. Cassiel. You're experiencing psychogenetic cascade. Dante's voice was closer now, right behind me. The Black Rage. You need to board the Thunderhawk. We can still. I turned on him. My chainsword was already rising, its motor screaming, aimed at his throat. Some deep, primal part of my mind screamed traitor, screamed enemy, screamed kill. For a single terrible instant, I saw not Brother Sergeant Dante but Horus himself, the War Master, the betrayer, the one who had murdered everything I loved. I froze. The blade stopped 3 centimeters from his neck seal. Our eyes met through our helmet lenses. I saw his shock, his horror, his pity. Brother, he said softly, come back. You are not him. You are Cassiel. You are my battle brother. You are. A new voice cut through the vox, Chaplain Valen. broadcasting from the sanguine resolve. Brother Sergeant Dante. Confirm Brother Cassiel's status immediately. Dante didn't move, didn't lower his weapon, didn't break eye contact with me. When he spoke, his voice was steady, measured, the voice of a man delivering a death sentence. Confirmed, Chaplain. Brother Cassiel has succumbed to the flaw. The black rage has taken him. Silence on the Vox. Then, acknowledged. Recommend immediate termination. Negative, Dante said. I will not execute a loyal battle brother in a Xenos-infested Hulk. We're bringing him back. Brother Sergeant, you know the protocols. Those who fall to the rage cannot be. We're bringing him back. Dante's voice was iron. Valen, prepare a containment cell. Full restraints. Sanguinary priest standing by. We'll decide his fate once we're aboard. Dante out. He cut the transmission. Turned his full attention to me. Cassiel, I know you can hear me. I know you're still in there, fighting. Lower your weapon. Board the Thunderhawk. We will help you. I swear by Sanguinius himself, we will help you. I wanted to obey. Emperor, how I wanted to obey. But the visions were overwhelming now, coming in waves, drowning rational thought. I was on the vengeful spirit. I was in the space Hulk. I was dying. I was killing. I was both and neither, and my chains word lowered. Not because I chose to lower it, but because Brother Severus had come up behind me and activated a stasis field, a localized chronometric disruptor that slowed my movements to a crawl. My enhanced reactions meant nothing against technology that bent time itself. Forgive me, brother, Severus whispered as he and Matthias grabbed my arms, hauling me backward toward the Thunderhawk. I tried to fight, tried to break free, tried to kill them because they were traitors, because they served Horus, because... No, that was the rage talking. That was the curse. They weren't traitors. They were my brothers. They were trying to save me. But I couldn't stop fighting. My ceramite-clad fists lashed out, connecting with Matthias's chest plate, cracking it, driving him back 3 steps. My legs swept low, aiming for Severus's knee, a strike that would have shattered the joint if he hadn't blocked it. I was dimly aware of my own voice, roaring words in a language I didn't speak. High Gothic mixed with Proto-Terran, phrases from the Unification Wars, battle cries from a time before the Imperium. They wrestled me up the Thunderhawk's ramp. It took 4 of them, Dante, Matthias, Severus, and Velos, to force me into a restraint harness, maglocking my armor to the bulkhead. I thrashed against the bonds, servos whining, plasteel groaning. The assault ramp closed. The Thunderhawk's engines roared. We lifted off, accelerating away from the Space Hulk, leaving the Genestealers behind. But I was still fighting. In my mind, I wasn't escaping. I was advancing deeper into the vengeful spirit, pushing toward the throne room where the War Master waited. My brothers, the Sanguinary Guard, the finest warriors the Blood Angels had ever produced, followed me. We cut through traitors and demons, our blades singing hymns of vengeance. And ahead, always ahead, waited Horus. I could see him now, seated on a throne of bones and broken oaths. The warp had changed him, twisted him into something magnificent and terrible. He was no longer human. He was barely recognizable as the brother I had loved. But his eyes, Emperor preserve me, his eyes were still his own. Sad, resigned, full of regret. It didn't have to be this way, he said. But it is, I replied and raised my blade. The duel lasted hours, days, eternity compressed into moments. We were matched. His corrupted power against my fading strength. His sorcerous might against my purity of purpose. The throne room burned around us. Reality tore. Demons screamed. And slowly, inevitably, he won. His talon punched through my armor, through my chest, piercing both hearts simultaneously. I gasped, blood flooding my mouth. My sword fell from nerveless fingers. I collapsed to my knees. Brother? Horus whispered, and there were tears on his face. Forgive me. Never, I said, and died. I woke screaming in the containment cell. My throat was raw, my voice hoarse from hours of shouting. Every muscle ached. My armor was gone, replaced by simple shipboard robes. My wrists and ankles were secured with adamantium chains, each link inscribed with wards and prayers, anchoring me to the cell's center. The room was small, bare, lit by a single pale lumen strip. Across from me, separated by armored glass, stood Chaplain Valen. He wore his full regalia, black armor, Death's head helm, Crozius Arcanum held across his chest. When he spoke, his voice came through vox speakers embedded in the glass, deep and solemn. "Brother Cassiel, you have returned to us." I tried to speak. My mouth worked soundlessly for several seconds before words came. "Where what?" "You are aboard the Sanguine Resolve. You have been in containment for 6 hours. You killed 17 training servitors during your initial confinement. It took 3 of your brothers and 2 full companies of chapter serfs to subdue you." He paused. "You nearly killed Brother Sergeant Dante." Memory flooded back. The space hulk. The visions. The moment I had turned my chainsword on my own squad leader. Horror washed over me, so intense it was physically painful. "I know. I wouldn't." "You did. The black rage consumed you. You believed yourself to be Sanguinius in his final moments, fighting Horus aboard the vengeful spirit. You saw enemies where there were brothers. You attacked us." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Emperor, forgive me. I'm so sorry." Valen studied me for a long moment. "Do you know what happens to those who fall to the rage?" I did. Every blood angel knew. The Death Company. We are inducted, given black armor, and hurled at the enemy. We die in service. We die as weapons. "Yes." Valen's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "But there is a complication in your case, Brother Cassiel. You have emerged from the initial episode. Most who fall to the rage never regain coherence. They remain trapped in the vision, living and reliving Sanguinius's death, until they finally fall in battle. But you came back." Hope flickered in my chest, fragile as a candle in a storm. "Then, I can still serve?" "I can still." "The respite is temporary," Valen interrupted. "The sanguinary priests have examined your gene seed. The corruption is widespread and accelerating. You will fall again, soon. And when you do, you may not come back." The hope died. "How long?" "Days. Perhaps a week if you are strong. The rage is patient. It waits. And when it takes you again, it will be permanent." I slumped against my chains. "Then induct me now. Give me my death in service. Let me die as a blood angel should." "That was my recommendation," Valen said. But Brother Sergeant Dante argued for another option. An experimental approach. Experimental. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. In the Adeptus Astartes, experimental meant untested, dangerous, possibly heretical. It meant technology that pushed boundaries the Mechanicus preferred to keep sacrosanct. It meant choices that chapter masters made in darkness, choices they never put in official records. What kind of experiment? My voice was steadier now, my enhanced physiology having recovered from the episode, my mind clearing despite the doom hanging over me. Chaplain Valen's Death's head helm turned slightly, as if he were looking at something beyond my containment cell. 15 years ago, during the Jericho campaign, we recovered a piece of archaeotech from a derelict research station. Pre-heresy manufacture, possibly dark age of technology origin. A stasis field generator of unprecedented sophistication, capable of localized temporal suspension at the cellular level. I frowned. Stasis technology is not uncommon. Every ship carries. "This is different," Valen interrupted. "Standard stasis fields freeze time uniformly. The subject is preserved perfectly but experiences nothing. No thought, no sensation, no passage of subjective time. This device is selective. It can slow biological processes while leaving neural activity partially active. A subject placed in its field would experience time at an altered rate, days passing in seconds, or seconds stretched into subjective hours. The implication dawned slowly. "You want to put me in stasis." "Partial stasis," Valen corrected. "The theory, and I stress that it is only theory untested on Astartes physiology, is that we could slow the Black Rage's progression. Keep you suspended in the moments between episodes, extending your service life indefinitely. At what cost? Valen's silence was answer enough. I pressed forward, my chains rattling. Chaplain, I have served the Blood Angels for 237 years. I have seen brothers die in every manner imaginable. I know when I am being offered a mercy and when I am being offered something else. What is the cost? The chaplain's armored gauntlets tightened on his Crozius Arcanum. You would be conscious during stasis, aware but unable to act. Time would pass differently for you, minutes feeling like hours, hours like days. Your neural activity would remain elevated to prevent complete temporal suspension, which means you would experience the duration subjectively. He paused. And we cannot control when episodes of the rage will occur. If one happens while you're in stasis, you would experience it fully. Every moment, every vision, trapped in Sanguinius's death, unable to move, unable to fight, unable to escape. Potentially for subjective months or years. The horror of it settled over me like a shroud. To be locked in my own mind, experiencing the Primarch's death again and again. Helpless, unable to move or scream or die. To be frozen in the moment of ultimate betrayal. Feeling Horus's talon pierce my chest. Feeling my heart stop. Feeling death come but never arrive because time itself would be stretched like torture on a rack. It would be a hell unique in its cruelty. Why? I ask simply. Why offer this instead of letting me join the death company? Why not give me an honorable death? Because we are dying, Valen said bluntly. The Blood Angels, Brother Cassiel. Our chapter. We lose brothers to the flaw at an accelerating rate, 50 in the last decade alone. The red thirst grows stronger with each generation. The Black Rage claims more every year. If the trend continues, within 3 centuries there will be no Blood Angels left. Only monsters wearing our colors. He stepped closer to the armored glass, his reflection merging with mine. You are not the only one to emerge from the first episode. There have been others. Rare cases where a brothers will prove strong enough to temporarily resist the rage. Most fell again within hours. Some lasted days. The longest survived a week before succumbing permanently. He paused. But if we could preserve those moments of lucidity, if we could stretch them, extend them, keep brothers functional between episodes, we might find a pattern. A weakness in the flaw. A path toward a cure. You want to use me as a test subject. I want to give you a choice that honors both your service and your gene legacy, Valen corrected. Join the death company and die with glory, or enter the stasis field and continue serving, even if that service is measured in fragments and shadows. Become a weapon we deploy when needed, then return to temporal suspension afterward. How long? I asked. If I choose this, how long would I serve? Until the flaw takes you permanently. Until we find a cure, or until you request termination. Valen's voice softened. I will not lie to you, brother. This could be months, years, decades, and much of that time would be subjective eternity, suspended between heartbeats, waiting for the next deployment, the next episode, the next. I'll do it. The words left my mouth before I fully realized I'd made the decision. But the moment I spoke them, I knew they were right. Valen tilted his head. You understand what you're accepting? The pain, the isolation, the risk that we may never find a cure, that you may spend centuries in temporal limbo. I understand. I met his gaze through the armored glass. Chaplain, every blood angel lives under a death sentence. We are born with the curse and we die with the curse. Whether I fall in glorious battle next week or endure stasis for 100 years, the end is the same. But if my suffering can bring us closer to a cure, if my existence as a weapon can save even one brother from the flaw, then it is suffering with purpose. I rattled my chains, metal singing against metal. I am a blood angel. I am a weapon of the Emperor. Point me at the enemy, and I will kill until I cannot kill anymore. And when the rage takes me, I will fight it as long as I can, knowing that every moment I resist gives you data, gives you insight, gives you hope. Valen was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed. a rare gesture from a chaplain, heavy with respect. Your courage honors Sanguinius. I will inform Chapter Master Dante of your decision. The preparations will take several days. Use that time to make peace with your choice. When do I begin? After we return to Ball. The stasis device is too delicate to activate during warp transit. We have 6 days of real space travel remaining. He turned to leave, then paused. Brother Cassiel, pray that we find a cure. Pray that your sacrifice has meaning. Pray that the Emperor sees what you endure and judges it worthy. I am a blood angel, I repeated. The Emperor gave up his humanity to save us all. How can I offer less? Valen left without another word, the security door hissing shut behind him. I was alone. The 6 days passed like decades. They kept me in the containment cell, chained and monitored, my vitals broadcast to the sanguinary priest's medici deck. I ate nutrient paste from automated dispensers. I drank recycled water. I slept in fitful bursts, always waking with the taste of blood in my mouth and visions lurking at the edge of perception. The black rage circled me like a hunting beast, patient and inevitable. I felt it constantly now, a pressure in my skull, a whispering presence that wore Sanguinius's face and spoke with Horus's voice. It would surge forward during my waking hours, overlaying the cell's bare walls with golden battlements and burning skies. Then it would recede, leaving me gasping and disoriented, never certain if minutes or hours had passed. Brother Sergeant Dante visited once. He came in full armor, his bolt pistol holstered but clearly present. We regarded each other through the armored glass, two warriors who had fought side by side for decades, now separated by fate and gene curse. I owe you an apology, he said. I frowned. For what? For not seeing the signs earlier. For pushing the advance when I should have called for extraction. No, I shook my head firmly. You followed doctrine. You made the correct tactical decisions. The flaw does not announce itself with trumpets and warnings. Comes when it comes. You have nothing to apologize for. Dante's jaw tightened. I nearly lost you. I nearly lost a brother to madness in a Xenos Hulk. If Severus hadn't activated the stasis field. But he did. And you brought me back. And now I have a chance to keep serving. I managed to smile, though it felt strange on my face. That is more than most who fall to the rage can claim. What you're agreeing to... Dante trailed off, then started again. Cassiel, I advocated for this option because I believed it gave you a choice. But after speaking with the sanguinary priests, after understanding what the partial stasis will feel like, I wonder if I've condemned you to something worse than death. You've given me purpose, I said simply. That is all a blood angel can ask. We stood in silence for several minutes, the weight of unspoken brotherhood filling the space between us. Finally, Dante spoke again. When they wake you, when they deploy you, I will lead your squad. I will be there, brother. You will not face the enemy alone. Thank you, I whispered. He nodded once, sharp and formal. Then he turned and left, his footsteps echoing in the corridor beyond. I was alone again. On the 7th day, we arrived at Ball. The crimson world hung in the viewport of my containment cell, a desert planet scoured by radiation and history, home to the blood angels for 10,000 years. Somewhere on its surface stood the fortress monastery of the Arx Angelicum, where Sanguinius himself had walked, where his blood was preserved in sacred vials, where the curse that defined us all had been born. They came for me at dawn, 3 sanguinary priests in white armor, their artificer gear humming with biomonitors and analytica equipment. They unchained me, replaced my shipboard robes with a medical gown, and escorted me through the Sanguine Resolve's corridors. Battle brothers stopped to watch as I passed, their faces hidden behind helmets but their postures speaking volumes. Some offered fist-to-chest salutes. Others simply bowed. They knew what I was going to become. The medici deck was a cathedral of science and faith, vaulted ceilings inscribed with prayers to the Emperor, surgical theaters equipped with archaeotech from the Dark Age, gene forges burning with carefully controlled promethium flames. At the chamber's center stood the stasis device. It was smaller than I expected. A cylindrical pod 3 meters tall, its surface etched with circuits and glyphs that hurt to look at directly. The interior was barely large enough for an Astartes, padded with impact-absorbing gel, festooned with cables and neural interfaces. Coffin, chrysalis, prison. Chief Apothecary Zophel waited beside it, his aged face drawn with concern. "Brother Cassiel, are you certain of this choice?" "I am." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. The process will be uncomfortable. We must interface the stasis field directly with your black carapace and neural architecture. You will feel the connections being made. You will feel time beginning to slow. Do not resist. Do not fight the transition. Trust the technology." "How will you wake me?" "We won't," Zophel said bluntly. "The stasis field is programmed to respond to threat stimuli. When the chapter requires your service, when we deploy you to a battlefield, the stress hormones and combat conditions will partially disrupt the field, allowing you to act. Afterward, it will reassert itself automatically, returning you to suspension. So I would be a weapon in the truest sense, locked away until needed, drawn forth to kill, then sheathed again. And if I fall to the rage while deployed, the field will contain you. You will be unable to harm your brothers." Zophel's voice was gentle. "But you will experience the episode fully. Subjectively, it may last hours or days. We will do what we can to minimize the duration. But I understand." Zophel gestured toward the pod. "Then let us begin." I climbed inside. The interior was cold, the gel pressing against my skin like a living thing. The sanguinary priests worked quickly, attaching neural cables to ports in my spine, threading monitors into my jugular and femoral arteries, fixing stabilization clamps around my limbs. I watched through the pod's transparent faceplate as they made their preparations, their movements ritualized and precise. Chief Apothecary Zophel appeared above me, his face framed by the pod's opening. "Before we activate the field, I must ask one final time. Do you consent to this freely? Do you understand that we cannot predict the full effects? Do you accept that you may experience subjective centuries in temporal suspension?" "I am a blood angel," I said. "I was born for sacrifice. Activate the field." Zophel bowed his head. "The Emperor protects, brother. May he watch over you in the darkness between moments." He stepped back. The pod sealed with a pneumatic hiss, and the world began to slow. Time became taffy. That's the only way I can describe it. Time stretched and pulled and distorted until seconds became hours, until heartbeats lasted lifetimes. The stasis field activated with a sound like crystal singing, and suddenly I was moving through liquid eternity. I could still see through the pod's faceplate. The Medicae chamber was visible, the sanguinary priests standing around my pod, monitoring equipment, speaking to each other. But they moved impossibly slowly. A gesture that should have taken half a second stretched into minutes. Words became drawn-out groans, syllables lasting hours. And I was aware of every moment. My heart beat. 1, 2, 3. Each contraction of the muscle took subjective minutes, the blood flowing through chambers with geological patience. I felt every cell in my body, every nerve firing, every synapse sparking. The enhanced biology of an Astartes, already operating beyond human norms, became a cacophony of sensation at this altered temporal rate. I tried to move. My muscles responded with the speed of continental drift. My finger twitched, a movement that in real space probably lasted a microsecond, but which I experienced as a slow, agonizing curl lasting hours. The neural impulse traveled from brain to muscle like a pilgrim crossing a desert, every millimeter of the journey perceptible. I tried to scream. My lungs expanded over the course of subjective days. This was the price. This was what I had agreed to. I forced myself to remain calm, to accept the temporal distortion. Fighting it would only make the experience worse. I focused on my breathing, each inhalation a marathon, each exhalation a funeral procession. I counted heartbeats. I recited prayers, each word stretching into hours of mental recitation. The Emperor protects. His will is eternal. I am his weapon. I am his... The Medicae chamber faded as the sanguinary priests left. Darkness came. Not sudden but gradual. like watching a sunset that lasted weeks. The lights dimmed, the equipment powered down. The world contracted to the small space of my pod, the sound of my own breathing, the slow thunder of my hearts. And then nothing, just me, suspended between moments, waiting. How long did I wait? In real space, according to the chronometers I would later read, it was 3 weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. Subjectively, it was decades. I experienced every hour as a year, every day as a generation. Time lost meaning. I existed in a state of eternal present, neither sleeping nor truly awake, conscious but helpless, aware but unable to act. The worst part wasn't the boredom, though that was terrible in its own right, a crushing tedium that pressed against my mind like a physical weight. The worst part was the anticipation. I knew the rage was coming. I could feel it circling my consciousness like a shark beneath a boat, patient and hungry. Every subjective day it came a little closer. Every week the visions grew a little sharper. I would see flashes, golden walls, black blades, a traitor's smile, and then they would fade, leaving me alone in the darkness again, waiting, knowing that when the rage finally came, I would experience it fully, trapped in stasis, unable to fight or flee. The fear of it was almost worse than the rage itself. The first deployment came without warning. One moment I was suspended in eternal darkness, counting the slow beating of my hearts. The next, the stasis field flickered, disrupted by external stimuli, by hormones flooding my system, by the proximity of violence. Time snapped forward like a released bowstring. Suddenly I could move. The pod opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. I fell forward, landing on my hands and knees, gasping, disoriented. The world was moving at normal speed again, impossibly fast, overwhelmingly bright, full of sound and fury. Hands grabbed me, hauling me upright. I recognized Brother Sergeant Dante's voice through the confusion. Cassiel, combat readiness. Now. Training overrode disorientation. I stood, accepted the armor pieces as they were maglocked onto my frame. Chest plate, pauldrons, vambraces, greaves. My weapons were thrust into my hands. Fury's kiss, my bolter, my chainsword. I checked them automatically, muscle memory taking over while my mind caught up with real space. Where? My voice was hoarse from disuse. What's the target? Orc warband, 15 kilometers from the Arx Angelicum. They broke through the planetary defenses, landed 300 strong, pushing toward the fortress. We're third-wave reinforcement. Dante's face was grim behind his helmet. We deploy in 30 seconds. The deployment bay snapped into focus around me. 20 blood angels in full warplate, bolters blessed and loaded, faces hidden behind crimson helms. A Thunderhawk waited with engines already screaming, assault ramps lowered. Through the bay's atmospheric shield, I could see Bale's red surface, and the smoke rising from burning settlements. How long was I in stasis? I asked as we boarded the Thunderhawk. 3 weeks, Dante replied. You've been under since we arrived. 3 weeks in real space, subjective decades in the pod. But there was no time to process that now. The Thunderhawk lifted off with a roar, banking hard, accelerating toward the battlefield. I checked my weapons again, then my armor seals, then my ammunition loadout. Everything was in order. Everything was ready. I was a weapon being deployed, and weapons didn't need to understand, they only needed to function. The battle was brief and savage. The orcs had established a defensive position in the ruins of an abandoned manufactorum, using the wreckage as cover, their heavy bolters and rockets creating overlapping fields of fire. We came in fast and low, the Thunderhawk's door gunners raking the greenskin positions, drawing fire while we deployed. I hit the ground running, bolter raised, targeting reticule already tracking. The first orc died before it saw me. 3 mass-reactive rounds through its skull, cranium vaporizing in a spray of gore. The second tried to close with a crude power claw, bellowing a war cry. I sidestepped its charge, brought my chainsword around, carved through its spine, fell in pieces, and I felt nothing. No fear, no exhilaration, no satisfaction, just cold, mechanical efficiency. I was a weapon. I killed because that was my function. We advanced through the ruins in standard formation, fire and movement, covering advances, eliminating targets with precision brutality. The orcs fought with their characteristic mindless aggression, throwing themselves at our lines without tactics or coordination. We cut them down like wheat before a scythe. The engagement lasted 8 minutes. When the last greenskin fell, I stood in the center of the killing field, bolter smoking, chains were dripping with alien blood, and felt the stasis field begin to reassert itself. Time started to slow again. No, I whispered, but it was futile. The field was programmed to activate once combat conditions ceased. I had seconds, real space seconds, before I would be returned to temporal suspension. Dante appeared beside me. Good work, brother. Clean kills, perfect discipline. The rage didn't. It's pulling me back. I interrupted, my words already stretching, slurring. I can feel it. The field is acknowledged. We'll return you to the Medicae deck. See you next deployment, brother. Wait, I tried to say, but the word took subjective hours. I need to. The world slowed to a crawl. Dante froze mid-motion. The smoke from burning orc corpses hung in the air like sculpture. And I was suspended again, trapped between heartbeats, falling backward into the eternal darkness of the pod. 8 minutes of combat, subjective weeks of deployment, and then months of waiting. The second deployment came faster, only 12 real space days later. Genestealer cult uprising on an agri-world. 300 cultists fortified in a planetary governor's palace, holding hostages, demanding recognition from the Imperium. The Blood Angel's response was characteristically unsubtle. Total extermination. I was deployed with a full tactical squad, breaching the palace walls with melta-charges, advancing floor by floor. The cultists fought with the desperation of the truly damned, knowing their gods would not save them. We killed them room by room, corridor by corridor, our bolters painting the walls with heretic blood. The engagement lasted 14 minutes. I killed 23 cultists. Then the stasis field reclaimed me. The third deployment, Chaos Cultist Ritual, interrupted mid-summoning. 6 minutes of combat. 17 kills. Return to stasis. The fourth, Orc Raiding Party. 11 minutes. 31 kills. Stasis. The fifth, Renegade Guard Regiment. 9 minutes. 19 kills. Stasis. The deployments blurred together. Each time the pattern was the same: wake, arm, deploy, kill, return. I became efficient at it, my combat performance actually improving as all extraneous thoughts fell away. I didn't think. I didn't feel. I just executed the mission with mechanical perfection. And between deployments, I waited in the darkness. Subjective years passed. Decades. I lost count. The temporal suspension became my reality. The brief moments of combat just fleeting dreams. I existed in a state of permanent anticipation, waiting for the next deployment, waiting for the black rage to strike, waiting for an end that never came. The rage returned during the 9th deployment. We were clearing a derelict orbital station, pirates using it as a base, preying on Imperial shipping lanes. Standard extermination mission. I had killed 12 hostiles, was advancing toward the command deck, when the vision hit. Suddenly I wasn't in the orbital station. I was on the Vengeful Spirit. The walls around me were golden instead of corroded steel. The enemies before me weren't pirates. They were traitor space marines in the colors of the Sons of Horus. And I was sanguineous again, bleeding from a dozen wounds, my wings shattered, my blade broken. Ahead Horus waited. No. I tried to say, tried to resist, but the vision was overwhelming. The black rage crashed over me like a tsunami, drowning rational thought. I was the Primarch. I was dying. My hands moved without conscious control. I raised my bolter and fired, not at the pirates but at my own brothers. Brother Matthias took 3 rounds to the chestplate before he could react. The Ceramite held, but he staggered backward, shouting something I couldn't hear through the roar of visions. I charged forward, chainsword screaming, seeing not my battle brothers but traitors, betrayers, servants of the War Master who had murdered everything I loved. I had to kill them. I had to. The stasis field activated. Emergency protocol triggered by my squad's biometric alarms, detecting the Black Rage episode. Time slammed to a crawl mid-swing. My chains whirred freezing centimeters from Brother Severus's neck. I was trapped again, but this time I was still in the vision. Still experiencing the rage, still believing I was Sanguinius fighting aboard the vengeful spirit. And subjectively, the episode lasted months. Trapped. I was trapped in a loop of dying, over and over, experiencing Sanguinius's final moments stretched across subjective eternity. The stasis field held my body immobile while my mind burned with the rage, unable to distinguish past from present, unable to escape the vision. I fought Horus for subjective weeks. Our duel played out in agonizing slow motion, every swing of his talon taking days, every parry lasting lifetimes. I felt each wound as he inflicted it, felt the ceramite of my armor cracking, felt the blessed steel of my blade chipping against his corrupted power. The throne room burned around us, flames frozen in mid-leap, demons caught in poses of eternal torture. And I knew, some distant part of me knew, that this wasn't real. This was memory. This was genetic trauma coded into my very cells, the death of my Primarch replaying through my consciousness. But knowing didn't help. The vision was absolute. Horus's talon pierced my chest for the 1000th time. I felt my primary heart rupture, blood flooding my chest cavity. I felt my secondary heart straining to compensate, failing. I felt my gene-enhanced biology attempting repairs it couldn't complete. I felt death coming with the patience of entropy. And then I died. But I didn't stay dead. The vision would reset, looping back to the beginning of the duel. I would be whole again, standing before the War Master, my blade raised, my wings spread, and we would fight again, and I would die again, and the cycle would continue, over, and over, and over. In real space, according to the chronometers I later reviewed, the episode lasted 43 seconds. From the moment the rage took me to the moment my brothers subdued me and the stasis field fully activated, less than a minute passed. Subjectively, I experienced 3 months of dying. 3 months trapped in Sanguinius's final moments, unable to move, unable to escape, unable to do anything except endure. The pain was absolute. The horror was infinite. And the worst part, the part that threatened to shatter what remained of my sanity, was the knowledge that this would happen again, and again, and again. For as long as I remained in this half-life state, every rage episode would be stretched into subjective eternity by the stasis field. I would experience decades of madness compressed into seconds of real space. I would die 1,000 deaths while my brothers watched helplessly. This was the price I had agreed to pay. This was the hell I had chosen. When the episode finally ended, when my mind exhausted itself and the vision faded, I found myself back in the Medicae deck, still locked in the stasis pod, but now with Chief Apothecary Zophal's face hovering above the faceplate. His lips moved. In real space, he was probably speaking at normal speed, but to me, still caught in temporal suspension, each syllable stretched into hours. Brother Cecile, can you hear me? I tried to respond. My jaw moved with the speed of glaciers. It took subjective days to form a single word. Yes. Zophal's expression, which I watched evolve like watching a flower bloom in extreme slow motion, shifted from concern to relief. It was a severe episode. You attacked your squad. They had to subdue you. How do you feel? How did I feel? Broken, shattered, violated by my own biology, haunted by deaths I hadn't died but had experienced as if I had. My mind was a labyrinth of trauma, each corridor leading back to the throne room, each door opening onto Horus's smile. But I couldn't articulate that, not at this temporal rate. So I simply moved my eyes, a gesture that in real space probably looked like a slow blink but which took me subjective hours, in what I hoped would be interpreted as acknowledgement. Zophal nodded, a movement that unfolded over subjective weeks. We are going to keep you 3 and deeper suspension. Numerous deployments you until we understand what triagered Thias. Do you consent? No more deployments meant more waiting, more subjective years in the darkness. But it also meant no more chances to hurt my brothers. No more risk of killing those I was sworn to protect. I managed another glacial eye movement. Yes. Good. Sleep new. Brother. While wake you winning we have avers answers. The Medici chamber lights dimmed. A process that took subjective months as the lumens gradually powered down. Zophal's face receded into darkness. I was alone again, suspended in the eternal present, waiting. But this time the waiting was different. Before, I had simply endured the temporal suspension, counting heartbeats, reciting prayers, maintaining discipline through sheer force of will. Now the rage's memory haunted every moment. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing Horus. I couldn't think without hearing his voice. The trauma had created a wound in my psyche that the stasis field wouldn't let heal. Instead, it stretched the wound across subjective eternity, keeping it fresh and bleeding. I began to understand what true torment meant. Days passed. Weeks. Months. Years. All subjective, all experienced alone in the darkness of the pod. I tried to occupy my mind, reciting the Codex Astartes from memory, composing prayers, solving tactical problems. But everything circled back to the throne room, to the dying, to the betrayal. I started to lose coherence. Without external stimuli, without the anchoring effect of regular deployment, my sense of self began to fragment. Was I Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels? Was I sanguineous dying aboard the Vengeful Spirit? Was I some amalgamation of both, neither fully one nor the other? The boundaries blurred. I would find myself mid-thought, uncertain if I was remembering my own service or recalling genetic memories from my premarch. Had I fought at the Siege of Terra, or had I only inherited that trauma through my gene seed? Did I serve the Emperor, or was I the Emperor's son, betrayed and dying? The temporal suspension that was supposed to extend my service was instead eroding my identity, one subjective year at a time. They woke me after 6 real space weeks. To me, it had been a subjective lifetime. The pod opened. I fell forward, unable to support my own weight, my muscles having forgotten how to move at normal temporal speeds. Hands caught me. Sanguinary priests in white armor, their voices speaking at incomprehensible speed after so long in suspension. Stable, neural degradation, cognitive function. I tried to focus on their words, but everything was too fast. The world was a blur of motion and sound, overwhelming after subjective decades of near stillness. I opened my mouth to speak, but my jaw wouldn't cooperate, the muscles locked from disuse. Chief Apothecary Zophal appeared, moving his hands in slow, deliberate gestures, compensating for my temporal disorientation. Brother Cassiel, we are going to help you readjust. Do not fight the process. Let your body remember how to move at normal speeds. They guided me through a series of exercises, simple movements at first, just flexing fingers and toes, then graduating to larger motions. It took hours of real space-time for me to relearn how to walk, how to speak, how to exist at normal temporal rates. My enhanced Astartes physiology helped, my body's adaptive systems gradually recalibrating. But the process was still agonizing. Finally, I could speak coherently. How long? 6 weeks in stasis, Zophal confirmed. We've been analyzing your neural patterns during the Black Rage episode. The data is... He hesitated. Unprecedented. The temporal suspension extended the episode far beyond normal parameters. In real space, it lasted 43 seconds. But your subjective experience, based on neural activity readings, suggests you perceived it as lasting approximately 3 standard months. 3 months. My estimate had been correct. The experiment has failed, I said flatly. The stasis field doesn't suppress the rage, it amplifies it, makes it worse. I'm useless to you like this. Not useless, Chaplain Valen said, entering the Medici chamber. His Death's Head helm was removed, revealing a scarred face aged by centuries of service. Different than anticipated, but not useless. We've learned that the rage can be triggered by extended combat deployment. We've learned that the stasis field's interaction with your neural chemistry creates feedback loops. We've learned that your will is strong enough to emerge from episodes, given time. At what cost? I demanded. I attacked my brothers. I nearly killed Brother Severus. I spent subjective months trapped in a nightmare. How is any of that useful? Valen stepped closer, his expression grave. Because you survived it. Because you're still coherent. Because you're still you. He placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture of brotherhood that nearly broke me. Brother Cassiel, we have had 37 other cases of blood angels emerging from their first rage episode. Do you know how many survived longer than 4 deployments? How many? 0. They all fell permanently within weeks. But you, he squeezed my shoulder. You've endured 9 deployments, 1 severe episode, and 6 weeks of deep stasis. You're still functional. Still sane barely, but still. That makes you invaluable. As a test subject, I said bitterly. As hope, Valen corrected. Every day you remain coherent is a day we didn't expect. Every episode you survive gives us data we've never had before. Every moment you resist the rage is proof that the flaw can be fought. His voice softened. I will not lie to you, brother. What you're enduring is beyond cruel. The Emperor himself might balk at such suffering. But it is suffering with purpose. It is sacrifice that serves. I wanted to argue. I wanted to rage against the injustice of being trapped between moments, experiencing eternity in fragments, dying repeatedly while my body remained alive. But what good would it do? I had made my choice. I had agreed to this experiment. And Valen was right. If my torment could help find a cure, could save even one brother from the flaw, then it had meaning. What now? I asked. Now we adjust the protocols, Chief Apothecary Zophel said. We're going to modify the stasis field parameters, reduce your subjective time dilation, increase your temporal suspension depth between deployments. It won't eliminate the suffering, but it should make it more bearable. And the deployments? Limited, Valen said. Short duration, high priority targets only. We'll keep your combat exposure minimal to reduce rage triggers. You'll spend most of your time in deep stasis, weeks or months passing in subjective hours instead of years. Months of real space-time compressed into hours of experience. It was better than what I'd been enduring, but still a strange half-life, still an existence measured in fragments. I consent, I said, because what other choice did I have? They modified the stasis pod over the next 3 days. I watched from a Medicae bed, my body still recovering from the extended suspension, as sanguinary priests and Mechanicus tech adepts worked on the device. They replaced neural interface modules, recalibrated temporal field generators, inscribed new prayers along the interior surface. The work was meticulous, reverent. They were modifying a device that kept a brother alive, and they treated it with appropriate gravity. Brother Sergeant Dante visited on the 2nd day. He sat beside my Medicae bed, his armor scarred from recent combat, his face drawn with exhaustion. I owe you another apology. Dante. No, listen. He held up a hand. When I advocated for the stasis protocol, I believed I was giving you a choice that honored your service. But after seeing what it does to you, after watching you attack us during that rage episode, after reading the apothecary's reports about your subjective time experience, I realize I condemned you to a hell I can barely imagine. I shook my head. You gave me purpose. That's worth any suffering. Is it? Dante's voice was haunted. Cassiel, I've led brothers into death for 200 years. I've made tactical decisions that sent good warriors to their doom. But I've never asked a brother to endure what you're enduring. To be trapped between moments, dying repeatedly, losing yourself piece by piece. It's too much. Then give me a choice, I said quietly. Right now, be honest. Should I continue this experiment, or should I request induction into the Death Company? Give me the tactical assessment, Brother Sergeant. Which option serves the chapter better? Dante was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with reluctance. The chapter needs the data you're providing. Every day you survive gives us insights that could lead to a cure. From a purely tactical standpoint, your continued service in stasis, despite the cost to you personally, serves the greater good. Then I continue. But from a personal standpoint, Dante continued, I would rather die with you in one glorious death company charge than watch you suffer this way for another decade. I smiled, though it felt strange on my face. That's why you're a good sergeant, Dante. You care about your brothers, not just the mission. But I'm a weapon now. And weapons don't need to be cared for, they just need to function. You're more than a weapon. Am I? I gestured to the modified stasis pod. I'm deployed to kill, then locked away. I experience time in fragments. I lose more of myself with each episode. What am I if not a weapon? Dante gripped my shoulder. You're a blood angel. You're my brother. And as long as I draw breath, I will remember that, even if you forget. He left before I could respond. They returned me to stasis on the 4th day. The modified pod felt different, the neural interfaces had been repositioned, the temporal field emitters recalibrated, the interior cushioning replaced. Chief Apothecary Zofel walked me through the new parameters as sanguinary priests attached monitoring cables to my black carapace. We've adjusted the temporal dilation ratio from 1 to 10,000 to 1 to 100. In practical terms, 1 real space hour will now feel like approximately 4 subjective days instead of 4 subjective years. 4 days instead of 4 years. The difference was astronomical, but it was still an eternity when you were frozen and alone with your thoughts. The stasis depth has also been increased, Zofel continued. Your neural activity will be suppressed to near dormancy. You'll experience something closer to sleep than wakefulness. It won't eliminate conscious awareness entirely, but it will reduce the subjective passage of time significantly. What about during rage episodes? Zofel's expression darkened. We've programmed the field to disengage completely if the rage is detected. Rather than stretching the episode across subjective months, it will release you into full temporal flow. The episode will play out in real space-time, potentially more dangerous to those around you, but far less damaging to your psyche. So I would experience the rage at normal speeds, but it meant I could potentially kill my brothers before they subdued me. Another devil's bargain. Another impossible choice. I understand, I said. Let's proceed. I climbed into the pod for the second time, the gel conforming to my body, the neural cables interfacing with my spine. The faceplate sealed above me, and I watched through the transparent surface as the sanguinary priests made final adjustments. Chaplain Valen appeared, pressing his hand against the faceplate in a gesture of benediction. The Emperor protects, Brother Cassiel. May your dreams be peaceful. May your service be honored. May your sacrifice bring us closer to salvation. I wanted to respond, but the field was already activating. Time began its slow collapse, stretching and distorting, pulling me down into temporal suspension. The last thing I saw was Valen's face receding into darkness. Then nothing. The modified stasis was better. Not pleasant, nothing about temporal suspension could be pleasant, but bearable. The near-dormancy state Zofel had described was similar to the fugue state Astartes entered during long void transits, a deliberate dulling of conscious awareness to conserve resources. I was aware but distant, experiencing time's passage without being fully present for it. Real space days became subjective weeks instead of years. Weeks became months instead of decades. The subjective passage of time was still far longer than normal, but it no longer felt like drowning in eternity. I could maintain my sense of self, could remember who I was, could hold on to my identity as Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels. I spent the time in mental discipline, reciting the Codex Astartes, composing prayers, reviewing tactical scenarios. I would construct entire battles in my mind, playing through every possible permutation, analyzing outcomes, maintaining the sharp edge of my strategic thinking. It was the only way to prevent my mind from atrophying during the long subjective months of suspension. And between these mental exercises I thought about Sanguinius, our Primarch, our Gene Father, the angel whose death had cursed us all. I had seen his final moments so many times now, first through the Black Rage, then through memory of those visions. I knew the throne room of the vengeful spirit better than I knew the halls of the Arx Angelicum. I knew Horus's expression as he struck the killing blow. I knew the exact angle of the blade as it pierced Sanguinius's hearts. And I wondered, not for the first time, if Sanguinius had known. If he had foreseen his own death, had walked into that throne room knowing he wouldn't leave it, had sacrificed himself deliberately to wound Horus enough for the Emperor to finish the job. Had his death been a choice? Or merely fate? And did it matter? The Blood Angels were defined by that moment. Every brother who fell to the Red Thirst or the Black Rage was reliving that trauma, that sacrifice. We were all Sanguinius in the end, all dying aboard the vengeful spirit, again and again, forever. Perhaps that was the real curse. Not the violence or the madness, but the eternity of it. The fact that our Primarch's death could never truly end because we carried it in our blood, coded into our genetics, replaying through every generation. How did you cure a wound that was also an identity? The first deployment under the new protocols came after 3 real space weeks. The transition was smoother this time, the stasis field releasing gradually instead of snapping free, giving my physiology time to adjust to normal temporal flow. I woke slowly, my mind clearing like fog burning off under sunlight, my body remembering how to move at real space speeds. I opened my eyes to find Brother Sergeant Dante standing beside the pod, his expression serious. "Combat readiness assessment," he said formally. "State your name and rank. Standard procedure for evaluating stasis recovery. Brother Cassiel, 4th Company, 7th Tactical Squad. Blood Angels Chapter. Current location? Strike Cruiser Sanguine Resolve. Ball System." The words came easily, my mind sharp despite the subjective months of suspension. Combat capability? I flexed my hands, rolled my shoulders, felt the familiar weight of my body. 90%. Will achieve full capability within 5 minutes. Dante nodded, satisfied. Good. We're deploying to a mining colony on Bal Secundus. Genestealer infestation, moderate density. Estimated engagement duration, 12 minutes. Your role is fire support, stay behind primary assault line, eliminate targets of opportunity. Understood. Understood. I climbed out of the pod, accepting armor pieces as sanguinary priests maglocked them to my frame. The ritual was familiar now, comforting in its repetition. This was what I was, a weapon maintained in storage, drawn forth when needed. The deployment was efficient and brutal. We dropped via Thunderhawk, breached the mining colony's primary habitat dome, and advanced through prefabricated corridors hunting genestealers. I maintained position 3 meters behind the assault line, Fury's Kiss raised, tracking targets through my helmet's augers. When genestealers appeared, I eliminated them with precise 3-round bursts, center mass, explosive decompression, confirmed kills. The engagement lasted 11 minutes and 43 seconds. I expended 67 rounds, 17 confirmed kills, 0 friendly fire incidents, and I felt nothing. No fear, no excitement, no satisfaction, just cold, mechanical execution of tactical doctrine. I was a servitor made of flesh, running pre-programmed combat algorithms, optimized for killing efficiency. When the last genestealer fell, I felt the stasis field beginning to reassert itself. Time started to slow, the world around me stretching like warm wax. I had approximately 30 real space seconds before full suspension. I used the time to reload Fury's Kiss, performing the action with deliberate care, making sure the magazine seated properly. Even if I wouldn't fire the weapon again for weeks, proper maintenance protocols were maintained. Weapons had to be ready. Dante appeared beside me, his mouth moving in real space speed, speaking words that I heard as drawn-out syllables. Good work. Celian kills. See you neist. The world stopped. I was back in the darkness, suspended between heartbeats, waiting. The second deployment, Chaos Cultist Summoning Ritual, interrupted. 9 minutes, 21 kills, no rage episode. Return to stasis. The third, Orc Scouts, eliminated. 7 minutes, 14 kills, stasis. The fourth, Dark Eldar Raiders, repelled. 13 minutes, 19 kills, stasis. The deployments blurred together, each one mechanically similar to the last. Wake, arm, deploy, kill, suspend. My combat efficiency remained high, My accuracy rating never dropped below 93%. My tactical positioning was flawless, my ammunition conservation was optimal. I was becoming the perfect weapon. But with each deployment, with each return to stasis, I felt something slipping away. Some essential part of myself that made me more than a combat servitor. The subjective months between deployments wore at my identity like waves eroding a cliff, slowly, inevitably, reducing me piece by piece. I started to forget details, small things at first. The name of a battle brother I'd served with decades ago. The exact wording of a prayer I'd recited 10,000 times. The layout of the Arx Angelicum's Western Chapel. Then larger things. The face of the chaplain who had overseen my induction into the chapter. The name of my home world before I was recruited. The reason I had wanted to become a blood angel in the first place. The stasis was eroding my memory, or perhaps it was simply the passage of subjective time. How many years had I experienced, suspended between moments? How long could a mind remain coherent when stretched across eternity? I was becoming less Cassiel and more something else. Something defined entirely by the mission, by the killing, by the endless cycle of deployment and suspension. Was this what it meant to be a weapon? To have everything stripped away except function? The fifth deployment was when I realized how far I'd fallen. We were purging a heretic stronghold, standard extermination, nothing unusual. I was performing optimally, eliminating targets with mechanical precision, when I killed a child. Not a heretic, not a cultist, a child. Couldn't have been more than 8 standard years old, clutching a crude wooden toy, standing in a corridor we were clearing. I saw the target silhouette through my helmet's augers, evaluated the threat level as 0.01%, and fired anyway. 3 rounds. Center mass. The body fell. I stepped over it and continued the advance. It wasn't until 4 hours later, after I'd returned to stasis, that I realized what I'd done. The horror hit me like a physical blow. I had executed a child, a non-combatant, someone who posed no threat. I had violated every code the Imperium held sacred, every principle the Blood Angels were founded on. And in the moment I had felt nothing. No hesitation, no remorse, no humanity, just cold, mechanical execution of target elimination protocols. What had I become? I tried to tell myself it had been an accident, a split-second judgment error, the fog of war. But I knew the truth. My enhanced Astartes senses had clearly identified the target as non-threatening. My combat protocols had flagged it as 0 priority. And I had fired anyway because firing was what weapons did. I had become so conditioned to killing, so stripped of everything except function, that I couldn't distinguish between valid targets and innocents anymore. The realization haunted my next subjective months in stasis. I replayed the moment again and again, analyzing it from every angle, searching for justification that didn't exist. The child had been in a heretic stronghold, true, but that didn't make them a heretic. They could have been a hostage, a refugee, someone the cultists had forced to remain. And I had killed them without a thought. I needed to tell someone, needed to confess, needed to face judgment for what I'd done. But trapped in stasis, I had no way to communicate. I could only wait for the next deployment, hope someone asked the right questions, hope I had the clarity to admit my failure. Subjective months passed. The guilt didn't fade. The 6th deployment came before I could confess. Genestealer cult, entrenched in an abandoned temple. Standard purge protocols. I deployed with my usual mechanical efficiency, but this time I forced myself to evaluate every target carefully, to double-check threat assessments before firing. It slowed me down. My kill rate dropped. My response time increased by 0.7 seconds, a tiny margin, but in combat, the difference between life and death. Brother Matthias took a genestealer claw to the shoulder because I hesitated before eliminating a target that turned out to be an adolescent cult member. 14 years old, augmented with genestealer genetics but still fundamentally a child. I killed them eventually, but the delay cost Matthias his pauldron and scored deep gouges in his armor. After the engagement, Dante pulled me aside. Your performance is degrading. Hesitation. Delayed target acquisition. Suboptimal firing solutions. What's wrong? I wanted to tell him, wanted to confess my crime, to seek judgment, to face whatever punishment my actions deserved. But standing there in the aftermath of combat, with adrenaline still flooding my system and the stasis field preparing to reclaim me, I couldn't find the words. "I'm functional," I said instead. Dante's eyes narrowed. "Brother Cassiel, I've fought beside you for over a year now. I know when something's wrong. Talk to me." But time was slowing already, the stasis field reasserting itself. My words stretched, becoming incomprehensible. Dante's face receded into temporal distance, and I was alone again with my guilt. The guilt consumed my next suspension period. Subjective months alone with the knowledge of what I'd done, what I'd become. I was no longer a blood angel. I was a malfunctioning weapon, damaged beyond repair, dangerous to deploy. I had killed a child. I had hesitated when my brothers needed me. I was failing in every way that mattered. The black rage seemed almost preferable. At least when the madness took me, I had the excuse of being someone else, some inherited genetic memory overwhelming my consciousness. But that child's death, that was all me. That was Brother Cassiel making a choice, or rather, failing to make one. I needed to confess, needed to request termination, needed to. The stasis field released unexpectedly. Not for deployment, the transition was too abrupt, my body lurching back to normal temporal flow without the gradual adjustment of combat readiness protocols. I gasped, disoriented, as the pod opened and I fell forward into unfamiliar hands. Not sanguinary priests, not fellow battle brothers. Chaplain Valen stood before me, his death's head helm removed, his scarred face grave with concern. Behind him, the Medici chamber was empty except for recording equipment. No witnesses, no observers. "Brother Cassiel," Valen said softly, "I've disabled the monitoring systems temporarily. What we discuss here will remain between us unless you request otherwise. I need you to tell me what's troubling you. The truth. All of it." The confession spilled out of me like blood from a wound. I told him about the child, the non-combatant I'd killed without hesitation, without thought, without humanity. I told him about the guilt, about the subjective months of self-condemnation, about my fear that I'd become a broken weapon more dangerous to my brothers than to the enemy. Valen listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When I finished, the silence stretched for several heartbeats. Then the chaplain spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Do you know why I became a chaplain, Brother Cassiel?" I shook my head, confused by the apparent non sequitur. "I became a chaplain because I killed a sanguinary priest during a Black Rage episode." Valen's eyes were distant, seeing some horror from his past. "It was my third deployment after succumbing to the flaw. I had been inducted into the Death Company, repainted my armor black, accepted my fate. We were hurled at a chaos warband, and during the fighting, the rage took me completely. When I emerged from it, I was standing over the corpse of Brother Apothecary Jahan, my chains word buried in his chest. I stared at him, speechless. Jahan had been trying to sedate me, to pull me back from the rage. And I killed him for it. Valen's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. I should have been executed. Chapter law was clear. Those who kill their brothers deserve death. But Chapter Master Dante, yes, our Chapter Master, the same Dante, intervened. He argued that I had been in the grip of the flaw, that I bore no conscious guilt. He offered me a choice: death with honor or service as a chaplain, dedicating my existence to preventing others from falling as I had. What did you choose? I chose service, and for 400 years, I have carried the weight of Jahan's death. Every brother I counsel, every warrior I induct into the Death Company, every prayer I offer to the Emperor, all of it is penance for the crime I committed in madness. Valen met my eyes. So when you tell me you killed a child, when you tell me you fear becoming a broken weapon, I understand. Better than you know. But your crime was committed during the rage, I protested. Mine was the result of conditioning. Valen interrupted firmly. Brother Cassiel, you have been deployed 17 times in stasis protocols. Each time you are woken, armed, pointed at an enemy, and expected to kill without question or hesitation. You spend subjective years in temporal suspension with nothing but combat protocols for company. Your mind has been shaped by the stasis, by the training, by the endless cycle, into a weapon that only knows one function: eliminate threats. He stepped closer, his voice intense. The fact that you recognize what you did as wrong, the fact that you feel guilt, the fact that you're confessing to me right now, that proves you're still human. Still a blood angel. Still Cassiel. I murdered a child. You made a mistake in combat, Valen corrected. A terrible mistake. An unforgivable mistake by many standards. But a mistake born from conditioning, from temporal disorientation, from being trapped in a cycle that strips away everything except function. He placed a hand on my shoulder. If you were truly broken, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't feel guilt. You wouldn't be confessing. The very fact that you're here, seeking judgment, proves you're still capable of redemption. I wanted to believe him. Emperor, I wanted to believe that I was still worthy of the title Blood Angel, that I hadn't fallen beyond recovery. But the child's face haunted me. That moment of firing without thought, without mercy. What do? I whispered. You carry it, Valen said simply. Like I carry Jahan's death. You acknowledge what you did, you accept the guilt, and you dedicate yourself to never repeating it. You make every deployment, every kill, every moment of service a form of penance. You become better than the weapon they're trying to turn you into. How? Valen smiled grimly. By remembering, by refusing to forget, by holding onto your humanity even when the stasis tries to strip it away. He gestured to the pod behind me. They've conditioned you to be efficient, to kill without question. But efficiency isn't the same as righteousness. Every time they deploy you, you must remember that you're not just a weapon, you're a blood angel. And blood angels protect the innocent, even when it costs us. Even if it makes me less effective, even if my hesitation gets my brothers killed. Especially then, Valen said, because a weapon that cannot distinguish between enemies and innocents is worse than useless. It's a threat to everything the Imperium stands for. Better to be a flawed warrior who occasionally fails than a perfect killer who murders children. The words settled over me like a benediction. You will carry this guilt, Valen continued. It will haunt you through every deployment, every stasis period, every subjective year you endure. But it will also keep you human. Let the guilt remind you of what you are and what you must never become. Will you report this? I asked. Will I face tribunal? Valen considered for a moment. No. By the laws of the Adeptus Astartes, you've committed a crime worthy of sanction. But I believe the punishment you're inflicting on yourself is more severe than any tribunal could impose. And I believe that publicly executing or censuring our only successful long-term stasis subject would do more harm than good to the chapter. He met my eyes. But this is conditional. The next time you deploy, you will evaluate targets carefully. You will prioritize valid threats. And if you ever kill another non-combatant, if you ever demonstrate that you've truly become a broken weapon, I will personally ensure you face the Emperor's judgment. Understood. Understood, Chaplain. Good. Valen reached for the pod controls. Now back into suspension. But remember, the darkness between deployments is where you do your real fighting. Fight to remember who you are. Fight to maintain your humanity. Fight to be more than the weapon they're making you into. I will, I promised. The pod sealed above me. The stasis field activated. And as time began its slow collapse, I held onto Valen's words like a lifeline. I was still human, still a blood angel, still Cassiel, and I would prove it with every deployment that followed. The next deployment came 3 real space weeks later. Orc warband, assaulting an Imperial Guard outpost. Standard elimination protocols. But this time, I deployed with Valen's words echoing through my mind. You're not just a weapon, you're a blood angel. I fought differently. Instead of mechanically eliminating every target in sequence, I prioritized threats. Orcs actively engaging guard positions died first. Orcs in support positions died second. Fleeing orcs, those who had broken and were running, I let go. Resources were limited, Every round mattered. Wasting ammunition on routing enemies when there were still valid threats engaging our allies was tactically inefficient. More than that, it was mercy. The orcs wouldn't survive long. The guard would hunt them down, or Bale's harsh environment would kill them. But I didn't need to be the instrument of their death. I could choose to prioritize protection over extermination. The engagement lasted 14 minutes. My kill count was lower, only 11 confirmed kills compared to my usual 17 to 20. But 0 guard casualties in the sectors I was supporting, compared to the usual 3 to 5 casualties in comparable engagements. After the deployment, as the stasis field began to reassert itself, Brother Sergeant Dante approached me. "Different performance profile this deployment," he observed. "Lower kill count, but significantly improved mission outcome." What changed? I wanted to tell him everything, about the child, about the guilt, about Valen's counsel. But time was already slowing, my words stretching into incomprehensibility. I managed only 3 words before the field reclaimed me. "Remembered, I'm human." Dante's expression, viewed through the slow collapse of temporal flow, shifted from confusion to understanding to something that might have been pride. His lips moved in response, but I couldn't hear the words before suspension took me. But I thought I saw him smile. The deployments continued. Each one was a test, not of my combat capability, but of my humanity. Could I distinguish between valid threats and non-combatants? Could I prioritize protection over elimination? Could I remember that I was more than a weapon? Some deployments were easy. Chaos cultists and Genestealers were unambiguous enemies. No innocence among their ranks, no moral complexity. I killed efficiently and without hesitation. Other deployments were harder. Genestealer-infected populations where distinguishing between willing cultists and mind-controlled victims was nearly impossible. Orc settlements where adolescents fought alongside adults. Chaos-tainted worlds where children had been indoctrinated from birth into heretical beliefs. In those situations, I erred on the side of caution. I took extra milliseconds to evaluate targets. I accepted slightly lower kill counts to avoid potentially murdering non-combatants. I chose to be a flawed warrior rather than a perfect killing machine. And slowly, over dozens of deployments and subjective years of suspension, I rebuilt my identity. I was Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels. I was a warrior cursed by the flaw, trapped in temporal suspension, deployed as a weapon. But I was also human. I was also capable of choice. I was also responsible for my actions, even when those actions were constrained by protocols and conditioning. The guilt over the child's death never faded. It remained a permanent weight, a scar on my psyche that the stasis wouldn't let heal. But Valen had been right. The guilt kept me human. It reminded me of what I had been and what I must never become. Then came the deployment that changed everything. Chaos incursion, major assault on a hive city. All available Blood Angels deployed, including Death Company units. The battle was massive, 3 full companies fighting alongside Guard regiments and Imperial Navy support, facing a Chaos warband enhanced by demonic allies. I was deployed to the front lines not as fire support but as primary assault. The situation was desperate enough that tactical doctrine was secondary to raw firepower. The fighting was intense beyond anything I'd experienced. Chaos Space Marines in the colors of a dozen traitor legions, demons manifesting through tears in reality, cultists by the thousands. The air was thick with the smell of promethium and blood and warp corruption. Reality itself seemed uncertain, flickering between stable and nightmare. I fought alongside brothers I didn't recognize, reinforcements from other companies, Death Company warriors in black armor, Sanguinary Guard in golden warplate. We advanced through the Hive City's ruins, clearing strong points, eliminating summoning circles, pushing the Chaos forces back street by street. And then I saw him, standing atop a ruined cathedral, silhouetted against a burning sky, was a Chaos champion in Baroque armor. His face was twisted by warp corruption, but something about his stance, his presence, triggered recognition deep in my gene-coded memory. For a moment, just a moment, I saw not a Chaos champion but Horus himself. The black rage stirred. The vision hit me like a bullet to the brain. Suddenly I was standing on the vengeful spirit, the walls around me golden instead of ruined rockcrete. The Chaos Champion atop the cathedral transformed, his armor shifting, becoming the War Master's Baroque plate, his face morphing into Horus Lupercal's tragic features. No, I thought desperately. Not now. Not during a deployment. Not when my brothers need me. But the black rage didn't care about need. It crashed over my consciousness like a wave, pulling me under, drowning me in genetic memory and inherited trauma. I was sanguineous again, wounded and dying, facing the greatest betrayer in human history. "Brother," Horus said, and his voice echoed across subjective eternity. "It ends here. It ended the moment I chose this path. You cannot save me. You cannot save the Imperium. You can only die." I tried to resist, tried to hold onto my identity as Cassiel, as a blood angel warrior in the present, not the past. But the vision was overwhelming. I was on the throne ship. I was dying. No, the word cut through the vision like a blade. No, I am not sanguineous. I am Brother Cassiel. I am here now fighting chaos forces in a hive city. My brothers need me. I will not abandon them to live in the past. It was the first time I had successfully resisted the rage while it was active. Every previous episode, the vision had consumed me completely, leaving me helpless, trapped in the Primarch's death. But this time, perhaps because of the months of self-reflection in stasis, perhaps because of the guilt I carried, perhaps because I had rebuilt enough of my humanity to have something to anchor to, I could fight back. The vision didn't disappear, but it fractured, breaking apart into fragments that I could see around rather than through. I was simultaneously sanguineous on the vengeful spirit and Cassiel in the hive city. Two realities overlapping, competing for dominance. I chose the present. With enormous effort, feeling like I was tearing myself free from quickcrete, I focused on the ruined cathedral, on the Chaos Champion who wasn't Horus, on the battle that was happening now instead of 10,000 years ago. My hands, which had been reaching for a blade I didn't carry, instead gripped Fury's kiss. I raised the bolter and fired. 3 rounds. Center mass on the Chaos Champion. The figure staggered, his armor cracking, warp corruption spilling out like luminous blood. But the rage wasn't done with me. The vision surged back, stronger now, angry that I'd resisted. Horus's face loomed large, filling my perception. His voice was everywhere, crushing, absolute. "You cannot escape this. You are me. You have always been me. You will die as I died, again and again, forever. No, I am not you. I am Cassiel. I am—" Someone grabbed my arm. I spun, Chain's word rising instinctively, ready to kill the traitor who had dared touch me. But it was Brother Sergeant Dante, his helmet removed, his face urgent. "Cassiel, the rage has you. Fight it. Come back." I stared at him. For a heartbeat, he was a sanguinary guard on the vengeful spirit. Then he was Dante again. Then he flickered between the two, reality uncertain. "I'm here," I managed to say. The words felt like lifting mountains. "Still here." Dante's eyes widened with shock. "You're conscious? You're experiencing the rage and still conscious?" "Yes. Help me. I can't hold it much longer." Understanding flashed across Dante's face. He grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Listen to my voice, brother. Focus on the present. You are in the Hive City. You are fighting chaos forces. You are Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels. Say it. I am—" The vision pulled at me, Horus's voice demanding my attention. "I am Brother Cassiel. 4th Company. Blood Angels. Again. Brother Cassiel. Blood Angels. Here. Now. Present." The repetition helped. Each time I spoke the words, the vision weakened slightly. I was building a wall in my mind, fragile, temporary, but real, between the genetic memory and my conscious identity. "Good." Dante was shouting now, though whether at me or into his vox I couldn't tell. "Keep fighting it. You're stronger than the curse. You're—" A demon materialized behind Dante, a horror of brass and blood, its form shifting between physically impossible geometries. It raised a blade that wept ichor and screamed with bound souls. I saw it. Dante didn't. I didn't think. I just moved. My chain's word intercepted the demon's blade centimeters from Dante's neck. The impact sent shock waves up my arm, the blessed steel of my weapon screaming as it ground against warp-forged metal. I twisted, threw the demon back, stepped between it and my sergeant. "Behind you!" I roared. Dante spun, bolt pistol rising, firing point-blank into the demon's face. The blessed rounds detonated, tearing holes in reality itself. The demon shrieked and dissolved, banished back to the Imperium. For a moment we stood back to back, breathing hard, weapons raised. "You saved me," Dante said, awe in his voice. "While experiencing the black rage, while caught in Sanguinius's death, you saved me." "I'm a blood angel," I said, and the words felt true for the first time in subjective decades. "We protect our brothers. Always." Around us, the battle continued to rage. But in that moment, standing beside Dante, having successfully resisted the rage long enough to act with purpose, I felt something I hadn't felt since entering stasis. Hope. Maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I could be more than a weapon. Maybe the curse could be fought, not just endured. The vision was still there, lurking at the edges of my perception. Horus's voice still whispered promises of death and doom. But I had proven, to myself, to Dante, to the Emperor himself if he was watching, that the rage could be resisted. "How long can you maintain control?" Dante asked. I didn't know. The effort of holding the vision at bay was immense, exhausting in ways that normal combat never was. "Minutes. Maybe. Not long. Then we make them count. Stay with me, brother. We finish this mission together." We advanced through the Hive City ruins, clearing chaos positions, supporting other squads, pushing toward the primary summoning circle that was the source of demonic manifestations. And with every step I fought two battles, one against the external enemy, one against the rage itself. The external battle was almost easy by comparison. Chaos cultists fell to precise bolter fire. Traitor Guard were eliminated with efficient brutality. Even Chaos Space Marines, veterans of the Long War, enhanced by dark blessings, died when focused fire concentrated on weak points in their armor. But the internal battle was agony. Every moment, the rage tried to overwhelm me. Every second, I had to consciously resist the vision, had to remind myself who I was and where I was. The mental effort was staggering. My enhanced physiology meant I could fight for days without physical exhaustion. But mental fatigue was setting in after mere minutes of resisting the curse. I stumbled. Dante caught my arm. "Still with me?" "Yes, barely. The summoning circle is 200 meters ahead. We break it, the demons lose their anchor point. We can do this." 200 meters. In normal circumstances, that was 30 seconds of combat advance. But fighting while resisting the black rage made every step feel like crossing a continent. We pushed forward. The summoning circle was protected by Chaos Space Marines, a full squad of Night Lords in midnight blue armor, their helms decorated with terror iconography, their weapons dripping with the blood of previous victims. They saw us coming and opened fire, bolt rounds screaming through the air. Dante and I took cover behind a collapsed wall. Return fire erupted from our position, disciplined, controlled, aimed to suppress rather than eliminate. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and I was fighting a battle inside my own head. "We need support," Dante voxed to command. "Requesting immediate." A Night Lord appeared above us, having scaled the wall we were using for cover. His bolt pistol was aimed at Dante's head, his finger already tightening on the trigger. I was faster. My chain's word took his hand off at the wrist. The bolt pistol fell, still clutched by severed fingers. Before he could scream, I reversed the blade, drove it up through his neck seal, felt the weapon tear through soft tissue and spinal column. The Night Lord collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. But the effort cost me. The rage surged forward, exploiting the momentary lapse in my concentration. The vision slammed back into full force. I was on the vengeful spirit again, fighting Horus, dying over and over, The hive city disappeared. My brothers disappeared. There was only the throne room, the war master, the inevitable death. No! I screamed, but the word came out in two voices. Mine and Sanguinius's, layered, overlapping, impossible to distinguish. Dante grabbed me, shook me. Cassiel, stay with me. Don't. An explosion nearby. Something had hit our position, a missile or heavy bolter round. The wall collapsed. Dante was thrown backward, landing hard. His armor cracked, blood seeping from a breach in his side seal. He wasn't moving. The sight of my fallen brother cut through the rage like nothing else could. Dante, I wasn't on the vengeful spirit. I was here, now, and my sergeant was wounded. The vision shattered completely. I rushed to Dante's side, checking his vitals through armor diagnostics. Alive, unconscious, wounded but recoverable. I grabbed him, hauled him over my shoulder. 400 kilograms of Astartes and armor, carried like he weighed nothing, and ran for cover. Night Lords tracked my movement, firing, bolt rounds sparking off my armor. I felt impacts. Left pauldron breached, right vambrace damaged, chestplate scored but kept moving. 30 meters. 20. 10. I dumped Dante behind solid cover, turned, raised Fury's kiss, and unleashed hell. Full automatic. Blessed vengeance poured from my bolter in a stream of explosive death. I walked forward into the Night Lord's position, firing continuously, reloading without breaking stride, advancing like the Emperor's own angel of death. The rage was gone, or rather, I had learned to channel it. All the fury, all the violence, all the inherited trauma of Sanguinius's death. I poured it into the mission, into protecting my brother, into destroying the enemies of the Imperium. I was no longer fighting the curse. I was using it. The Night Lords broke. They actually broke. Chaos Space Marines who had fought for 10,000 years, who knew no fear, who reveled in terror, they ran from me, because they saw not Brother Cassiel but something else. A blood angel fully in the grip of the flaw, channeling it with conscious control, becoming the avatar of righteous fury that Sanguinius himself had been. I reached the summoning circle. Chaos sorcerers were chanting around it, maintaining the warp breach, feeding power to the demon manifestations. They saw me coming and tried to redirect their sorcery, tried to unmake me with warp fire and soul death. I killed them anyway. Bolter fire. Chain's word work. Pure, brutal, efficient violence. They died, and with their deaths, the summoning circle collapsed. The warp breach sealed. Across the battlefield, demons shrieked and dissolved, their anchor point destroyed. I stood in the center of the broken circle, surrounded by corpses, my armor painted with the blood of traitors, and felt the rage finally release its grip. The exhaustion hit me all at once. I collapsed to my knees, barely able to support my own weight. Every muscle ached. My mind felt scorched, burned out from the effort of resisting and then channeling the curse. But I was still me, still Cassiel, still conscious. I had done it. I had experienced the black rage, fought through it, channeled it, and emerged intact. Medical servitors arrived, tending to Dante's wounds. Other blood angels secured the area, establishing a perimeter. Someone helped me to my feet, Brother Matthias, I think, though my vision was blurry with exhaustion. Brother Cassiel, a familiar voice said. Chaplain Valen, appearing through the smoke and ruins. Report. Did you maintain consciousness throughout the rage episode? Yes, Chaplain. And you protected your brothers? Completed the mission? Yes. Valen's scarred face broke into something I'd never seen before. A smile. Then we may have found it, brother. Not a cure, but something perhaps more valuable, a path to control. You've proven the rage can be channeled, directed, used as a weapon instead of being consumed by it. The implications slowly penetrated my exhausted mind. If I could resist the rage, if I could channel it, then maybe others could learn the same technique. Maybe the black rage didn't have to be a death sentence. Maybe we could fight the curse instead of just enduring it. Maybe there was hope for the blood angels after all. Take him to Medicae, Valen ordered. Full medical workup. I want every detail of his neural activity during that episode documented. This changes everything. As they carried me away, I caught a glimpse of Dante, conscious now, wounded but alive, watching me with an expression of profound respect. I had saved my brother. I had completed the mission. I had fought the curse and won. For the first time in subjective decades, I felt like more than a weapon. I felt like a blood angel. They kept me in the Medici Bay for 3 real space days, running every diagnostic known to the Mechanicus and several that probably bordered on tech heresy. Sanguinary priests monitored my neural patterns, analyzing the moment-by-moment progression of the rage episode. Chaplain Valen conducted extensive interviews, documenting my subjective experience, my techniques for resistance, my method of channeling the curse. I told them everything I could remember, the way the vision had fragmented when I focused on the present, the mental wall I'd built between genetic memory and conscious identity, the moment I'd chosen to channel the rage's fury into the mission instead of fighting it completely. Every detail might be the key to helping other brothers resist the curse. On the 4th day, they allowed visitors. Brother Sergeant Dante came first, his side wound bandaged but already healing, his expression serious. He stood beside my Medici bed for a long moment before speaking. "You saved my life 3 times during that deployment," he said quietly. "Once from the demon, once from the Night Lord, once from myself, because if you'd fallen to the rage completely, if you'd attacked us, I would have been forced to kill you. And that would have destroyed me. You don't need to." "I do," Dante interrupted. "Brother Cassiel, when I advocated for the stasis protocols, I thought I was giving you a chance to keep serving. But I also condemned you to a hellish existence, temporal suspension, fragmented identity, becoming more weapon than warrior. I've carried guilt over that decision for the entire year you've been in the program." "Dante, but now I understand." His voice was intense, urgent. "You weren't just enduring the stasis for data collection. You were learning, changing, becoming something new, not a broken weapon, but a brother who understands the flaw intimately enough to fight it. You've turned your curse into a strength." I shook my head. "I got lucky. One successful resistance doesn't mean." "It means everything," Dante said firmly. "Brother Cassiel, do you know how many blood angels have consciously resisted the Black Rage while it was active? In 10,000 years of chapter history. How many? 0. Until you." Dante gripped my shoulder. "You're the first, the only, and that makes you the most valuable brother in the entire chapter, because if you can learn to resist, you can teach others. If you can channel the rage, maybe we all can." The responsibility of that settled over me like armor, heavy, protective, inescapable. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we continue the experiment," Chaplain Valen said, entering the Medici Bay. "But with modified parameters. No more simple deployment cycles. Instead, we're going to pair you with brothers showing early signs of the flaw. You'll deploy together, and if they begin to succumb, you'll guide them through resistance, demonstrating the techniques you've developed, showing them it's possible to fight back." "I'm not a teacher," I protested. "You're a brother who has walked through the fire and emerged intact," Valen said. "That makes you exactly what we need. The death company will always be necessary for those who fall completely. But for brothers in the early stages, for those who still have a chance to resist, you can be their guide." He pulled up a hololith display showing neural scan comparisons, my brain activity during the rage episode versus typical patterns. The differences were stark. Where most brothers showed complete neural cascade, my patterns remained partially coherent, maintaining islands of conscious control even in the depths of genetic memory. "We don't fully understand how you're doing this," Valen admitted. "The temporal suspension may have trained your mind to maintain identity under extreme distortion. The guilt you carry may provide an emotional anchor strong enough to resist the vision. Or perhaps you simply have exceptional willpower, a statistical outlier, 1 in a million. But whatever the cause, we need to study it, document it, and try to replicate it. For how long? Until we develop a training protocol that works consistently. Or until the flaw finally takes you permanently." Valen's expression was grave. I won't lie to you, brother. Your success is remarkable, but the Black Rage remains ultimately undefeated. You may resist it for years, decades, even centuries, but eventually it will claim you. That is the nature of our curse. Then we'd better work quickly, I said. The modified protocols began 2 weeks later. Instead of pure temporal suspension between deployments, I spent part of my time conscious, training with brothers identified as high risk for the flaw. We worked through meditation techniques, mental discipline exercises, identity reinforcement protocols. I taught them what I'd learned: how to recognize the rage's onset, how to build mental walls against the vision, how to maintain focus on the present instead of being dragged into the past. Some brothers took to it immediately. Brother Raphael, a scout promoted to full battle brother status after showing early rage symptoms, learned the resistance techniques in 3 weeks. His first deployment after training showed 0 rage symptoms despite exposure to combat stress that should have triggered an episode. Others struggled. Brother Cain spent 6 months in training before he could consciously resist even minor vision fragments. During his first deployment, he fell to the rage completely, had to be subdued, and was inducted into the Death Company. I attended his final benediction, watched as he was repainted in black armor, and felt the weight of failure. Not everyone could be saved. The flaw was too old, too deep, too fundamental to our genetics. But for every brother like Cain who fell, 2 more like Raphael learned to resist. The ratio was improving. We were making progress. And through it all, I continued my own cycle: deployment, suspension, training, deployment again. The stasis parameters had been refined further, reducing my subjective time dilation to near nothing. Real space weeks passed as subjective weeks. I aged normally now, experiencing time at the same rate as my brothers. It meant I would have less total service life, decades instead of centuries in temporal suspension. But it also meant I remained human, remained connected, remained Cassiel instead of becoming an ageless weapon locked outside time. It was worth the trade. 5 years after my first successful rage resistance, the Blood Angels held a chapter conclave. Every captain, every chaplain, every senior officer gathered in the Arx Angelicum's Great Hall. Chapter Master Dante himself, the Dante, our legendary leader who had commanded the Blood Angels for over 1,000 years, presided over the assembly. I stood before them, wearing full ceremonial armor, and delivered a report on the resistance training program. The statistics were encouraging. 37 brothers trained, 23 showing measurable improvement in rage resistance, 14 maintaining full combat effectiveness despite early flaw symptoms. We had established a documented training protocol, refined it through trial and error, proven it could be taught consistently. It wasn't a cure. The Black Rage still claimed brothers regularly. The Death Company was still necessary. But we had proven, definitively, undeniably, that the flaw could be fought. When I finished my report, Chapter Master Dante stood. His ancient armor, the artificer plate he'd worn for millennia, gleamed in the hall's lighting. His face was weathered beyond age, bearing the weight of centuries of command. "Brother Cassiel," his voice resonated through the chamber. "By your sacrifice, by your suffering, by your refusal to surrender to the curse that haunts our bloodline, you have given the Blood Angels something we have not possessed in 10,000 years: hope." He descended from the command dais, approaching me directly. The assembled officers stood, a gesture of profound respect. "For your service, for your contribution to the chapter, I am authorizing your permanent release from stasis protocols. You have served your term as a weapon. Now serve as a brother, training others, leading by example, showing all Blood Angels that the flaw does not define us." Relief and uncertainty warred within me. "Chapter Master, I am willing to continue the stasis program if it serves." "It does not," Dante said firmly. "We have the data. We have the protocols. What we need now is you, conscious and present, teaching what you've learned. That service is more valuable than any number of deployments." He removed his own chapter champion medallion, a piece of jewelry older than some star systems, and placed it around my neck. "Rise, Brother Cassiel, champion of the flaw, teacher of resistance, living proof that we are more than our curse." The assembled officers struck their armor in salute, the metallic ring echoing through the great hall like a cathedral bell. I rose, bearing the weight of the medallion, the title, the expectation. I was no longer a weapon in storage. I was a battle brother again, fully restored to service, given purpose beyond killing. It should have felt like triumph, like redemption, like the end of my torment. But standing there, surrounded by brothers I had trained, brothers who looked to me as proof that the flaw could be beaten, I felt only the crushing weight of responsibility. Because I knew the truth. I had resisted the black rage but not defeated it. The curse still waited, patient and inevitable, ready to claim me the moment my guard dropped. Every brother I trained might eventually fall. Every technique I taught might prove insufficient against the 10,000-year-old trauma coded into our genetics. I wasn't a champion. I was just a warrior who hadn't lost yet. But looking at the faces around me, Dante and Valen and Raphael and dozens of others, all seeing hope in my survival, I understood that sometimes not losing was enough. Sometimes the fight itself was the victory. I will serve, I said simply, and meant it. Epilogue. 20 years later, I stand in the training halls of the Arx Angelicum, watching a class of initiates practice resistance meditation. They are young, barely a century old, most of them, and their discipline is still imperfect. But they are learning, improving, building the mental architecture that might save them when the rage comes. The black rage has not claimed me yet. I still experience episodes, perhaps one every 3 years, triggered by extreme stress or significant combat. But I can resist them now with practiced ease, channeling the fury into purpose, maintaining my identity even in the depths of genetic memory. I am not cured. The flaw remains, waiting. But I have learned to live with it, to function despite it, to be more than it wants me to be. And I am not alone. The Resistance training program has expanded chapter-wide. Every Blood Angel now receives basic instruction in the techniques I developed. Not all can master them. The flaw claims brothers still, regularly, inevitably, but enough succeed to make a difference. The Death Company is smaller now. Not by much. We are still cursed, still doomed, still haunted by Sanguinius's death. But every brother who learns to resist is a brother who doesn't need to repaint his armor black and hurl himself at the enemy in one final, fatal charge. It is not victory. It is not salvation. But it is progress. And for the Blood Angels, progress is hope. Brother Sergeant Dante, promoted to Captain Dante now, commanding 4th Company, visits the training halls regularly. He watches the initiates with the same proud expression he wore 20 years ago when I first successfully resisted the rage. "You gave them a future," he said to me once. "Brothers who would have fallen now serve with distinction. That's worth all the suffering you endured." I'm not sure I agree. The subjective centuries in stasis, the episodes of dying repeatedly, the guilt over the child I killed, the slow erosion of identity. All of that weight remains, carried forward into every day. I am scarred in ways that will never heal. But when I see an initiate successfully resist his first vision fragment, when I watch a brother deploy confidently despite carrying the flaw, when I stand beside warriors who should have fallen but learned to fight back, in those moments I understand what Chaplain Valen meant all those years ago. The suffering has purpose. The sacrifice serves. The curse can be fought. I am Brother Cassiel of the Blood Angels, 4th Company, champion of the flaw. I was a weapon locked in temporal suspension, deployed to kill, trapped between moments. I am a teacher now, showing brothers how to fight the curse in their blood, how to be more than their genetics demand. I will fall eventually. The black rage will claim me, permanently, irreversibly, inevitably. But until that day comes, I fight. I teach. I serve. And I prove, with every breath, that we are more than our curse. We are Blood Angels, and we will never surrender.